When I say the word tragedy, what comes to mind? You might think sad, you might think somber, you might think disastrous. You probably think of anything to explain something horribly undesirable. But there are degrees of tragedy, right? There are some things that are more tragic than others. So what makes something more tragic? If we take the literary definition of the term, tragedy involves a great or heroic person destined for downfall. The greater the hero, the harder the downfall, the more tragic the tragedy. And who's a greater hero or a person of more importance than a son or a daughter to a mom or a dad? That unconditional love is the fabric for our society. When your mom or your dad or whoever raises you says, "I love you. I expect you to work hard. I expect you to be honest. I expect you to know right from wrong, but no matter what, I love you." That is the foundational force that makes sure kids have both the drive to succeed and the safety to fall back on when they don't. So when that bond, that support structure gets broken, and the actions of a son or a daughter are so terrible, so despicable, so unforgivable, that a parent's unconditional love suddenly becomes conditional and fails, that is a downfall of tragic proportions. How far can that downfall go? That's what I'm thinking about this week. On Friday night, Sue Klebold, the mother of Dylan Klebold, one of the Columbine school shooters responsible for the deaths of 13 people, broke her long-standing silence with a lengthy interview with Diane Sawyer on 2020. What she had to say was sad in so many ways. The grief for the grief that her son caused, the constant questioning in her own mind if there were signs that she may have missed, the lifelong sentence of wondering if things would be different if she had only intervened. But nothing in the interview is more tragic to me than what she says here.
And I remember thinking, if this is true, if Dylan is really hurting people, he has to be stopped. And that at that moment I prayed that he would die, that God, stop this, just make it stop. Don't let him hurt anybody.
That is a mother praying for the death of her own son. I can think of nothing more tragic than a parent's bond of unconditional love being broken, that greatness falling so severely that she wishes that bond no longer existed at all. And Sue's not alone. Peter Lanza, the father of Sandy Hook shooter Adam Lanza, said in a 2014 interview that he wishes his son had never been born at all. These statements are so incredibly painful to think about. To think of the love and the pride that a parent feels in the life's work of raising a child, twisted to the point of existential regret. That's why these statements are the greatest imaginable tragedy to me. There's not much greater than a parent's love for a child, and there's not a harsher downfall than that love twisted to the point of hoping for that child's death or wishing that child never existed at all. Sadder still, the parents of these killers, like Sue Klebold and Peter Lanza, are often forgotten victims of these tragedies. And in some cases, like Sue's, they are further victimized after the fact. Sue also has to take public blame.
I would turn on a radio and people would be talking about me and calling me a disgusting person.
She has to defend herself from lawsuits, face criticism for not speaking publicly, despite the fact that whatever she says would be used against her in those lawsuits coming from the same people who tried to sue video game makers over Columbine, by the way, and struggle with the burden, both publicly and internally, for the horrific actions of her 18-year-old adult son. Even this week, the Colorado Attorney General, the supposed defender of the welfare of the people of that state, tweeted that Sue just doesn't get it, and that she's selfish. I suppose that selfishness explains why Sue is donating the proceeds from her speaking and from her book to mental health charities. I in no way mean to diminish the loss for the families of those slain at Columbine, for the families of those slain at Sandy Hook, for the families of those slain at any of the other all too common mass shooting sites in America. But let's kindly remember that Sue Klebold's son also didn't come home that day. Let's kindly remember that Sue also will never see the smile, never hear the laugh, never watch the growth of her son again. Let's kindly remember that the product of Sue's lifetime of work also was robbed from her in a single moment. Let's please be understanding that parents like Sue Klebold never intended for the horrors that their children committed to happen, that there was no reasonable way to prevent them from happening, and that they would change everything if they could, including erasing their own children's existence. Truly, there is nothing more tragic. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate the thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is @skag_3. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live stream. That is linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay, bye.